Dollar, dollar, dollar. Dirt and money, no soul. Had to go and get it, ain't no time to kick it. Got a stack and flip for my foes. Dollar, 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 dollar. Please tell me you can hear me. Don't turn your back and don't neglect me. Just let me know if you need me. Dollar, 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 dollar. Let me watch out for my partners. Keep my money long, get my team strong. Let me run away from my problems.
Yup, what's good, original crew, man? We're back. No Mr. Ballen. Even skeptics can't explain this shocking ending. Wonder what the skeptic. When every time he says skeptics, who he talking about? That's all I be wondering.
The non-believers in the community.
The ones that probably always got a response for something.
Yeah.
So those who are like me.
You think you are?
Some people might call me a skeptic. Let me know if you feel like I'm a skeptic. Let me know if y'all feel like. I told you in the previous video you're gonna get fired.
Am I?
Yeah, you're gonna get fired. You keep on. So, hey, with that being said, man, before we get into it today, make sure you check out the links in the description box.
Down below.
You already know where to go if you want to first support. All you gotta do is check out down below. Also, if you enjoyed today's visuals,
lock it in with a thumbs up.
If you hear some crunching and munching, just know it ain't us.
Yeah.
Well, it's
well,
us, but not us.
But our little man.
But y'all get it. Those who been here get it. So let's go. Let's check it out. Let's see what's about. You ready?
Yeah.
All right, let's get to it.
Today, we're going to learn about a little boy in India who for a time seemed like he was the worst behaved kid on the planet. But the truth was, that little boy had a huge secret. And when his secret got out, it changed everything anyone thought they knew about this boy, and it prompted all these big-time college professors from major universities all around the world to personally fly to India to investigate this kid's claims, because the implications of what he was saying were massive. But before we get into that story, if you're a fan...
No, typically the stories in India be about, right?
I already know. I already got something in my head. I'm 9 times out of 10. That's what
you think we doing it? Because all his India stories down there be the same.
They do.
And I feel like, you know what I'm saying? Because don't they culture believe in that?
Like, well, reincarnation?
I'm talking about coming back, yeah.
Yeah.
Don't their culture... I might be wrong.
I'm thinking that this is what it's about to be about.
But let's check it out.
Strange, Dark, and Mysterious, delivered in story format, then you've come to the right place, because that's all we do, and we upload once a week. So, if that's of interest to you, please replace the like button's roll-on deodorant ball with a single clove of garlic. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. Okay, let's get into today's story. Late one afternoon in December of 1986, a woman named Shanti Singh was sitting on her bed cradling her toddler son, whose name was T2, as he threw a huge temper tantrum. T2, who was 3 years old, had already been throwing this tantrum for about 30 minutes at this point, and it didn't seem like anything Shanti did was getting him to calm down. In fact, honestly, it just seemed like T2 was getting worse and worse by the second. And Shanti knew her son's constant wailing must be annoying her neighbors in the little rural village in northern India where they lived. But again, Shanti just felt like really there was nothing she could do. After all, this was not a typical toddler tantrum. T2 was not throwing this tantrum because he lost a toy or was fighting with his siblings or something. No, the reality was Shanti and her husband had no idea why T2 was throwing this tantrum, because T2 threw these tantrums all the time for seemingly no reason, and nothing they did would get him to stop. He would just start throwing these crazy fits, and he would only stop when he was ready. Now, Shanti and her husband had taken T2 to the local doctor, and he'd been examined, and the doctor said, look, I think your son's just fine. I can't find anything wrong with him, so whatever's causing him to be so upset, it's got to be psychological. Shanti grabbed her son and tried to give him a hug and kiss to get him to calm down. But as she did that, T2 turned around and tried to hit her in the face and kicked her and punched her. And so Shanti had to kind of fall back on the bed. And T2, at this point, who's still throwing this huge tantrum, he leapt off the bed and ran out of the room. Now, Shanti had already sent the rest of her family, her kids, her husband, outside to wait out this current T2 tantrum. And so for a second, Shanti thought about just laying on the bed and letting her crazy toddler just kind of run around the house until he was done throwing this tantrum. But as Shanti was laying there on the bed, practically crying from frustration, she heard a plate break in the kitchen. And so she jumped up and ran into the kitchen, and there was T2 looking down at the ground where there was a shattered plate on the ground. Clearly, T2 had smashed it on purpose. And so as furious as Shanti was, she suddenly realized that, nothing she could do was going to get this kid to stop. And so right now, the only thing she could do was just put him in a safe place where he couldn't hurt other people or himself or damage anything else. And so Shanti, trying to be as calm as possible, walked up to T2, who's still throwing this tantrum and swinging at her as she's coming near him. And she grabbed him, she turned him around so he couldn't kick her or punch her. She put him into his room and then shut the door. And then she sat down in the hallway with her back up against the door to keep it shut. And then as T2 inside the room began banging on the door and trying to open it, Shanti's sitting there anchoring the door, and she's just praying that her son's gonna calm down soon. And then at some point, Shanti heard her son start to say something that typically signaled the end of a tantrum. T2 in the bedroom began saying the word Shurshverma, which actually was a nonsense word that Shanti and her husband and the other kids had no idea what it meant. But, T2, at the end of his tantrums, he would always just start saying over and over again, Shurshverma, Shurshverma, Shurshverma. And so Shanti, she's in the hall and she's hearing T2 start to do that. And so on the one hand, she's thinking, okay, this tantrum's about to end. But on the other, she's like, I have no idea what that word means. It's obviously connected in some way to what's going on with my son, but I have no idea what it means. It sounds like nonsense. And so Shanti began yelling through the door at T2 to explain what Shurshverma meant, but T2 had no explanation. He just kept saying the word over and over again, Shurshverma, Shurshverma, Shurshverma. Shanti and her husband had 5 other kids. T2 was the youngest, and T2 was not like any of his other siblings. The other siblings did not throw temper tantrums like this, not at all. And in fact, T2 had been a difficult child even before he was born. Towards the end of Shanti's pregnancy with T2, she'd become very, very sick, and in fact had to be hospitalized for the entire last trimester. And then as a newborn baby, T2 basically didn't sleep at all, and he cried constantly. And so Shanti and her husband initially thought, T2 must just be a very fussy baby. But in time, as he grew into more of a toddler, it was clear to Shanti and her husband that T2 was actually a different kind of kid. He seemed like a very unhappy and kind of angry kid who was permanently on the verge of crying or throwing a fit. But it wasn't until T2 began talking at around 2 years old that Shanti and her husband really started to become worried. Because the things T2 was saying as a 2-year-old were just not in keeping with what you would expect a 2-year-old to say. And I'm not talking about the nonsense word that T2 would use during his temper tantrums, Shurshverma. Basically, T2 would say things that seemed to indicate that he genuinely hated everyone in his family. Now, for context, Shanti and her family were not poor, but they weren't rich either. They lived in a little concrete home, they didn't have a TV or a car, and all the kids wore hand-me-down clothes, and Shanti actually handmade her clothes and her husband's clothes. But the family always had enough food to eat, and they were educated, and they seemed happy enough. It's just that they didn't really have the ability to do anything extra, like above and beyond a modest life. And T2 had never known anything different. This was his life from the day he was born. But when he learned to speak at around 2 years old, it was like all T2 wanted to talk about was how crappy of a lifestyle their family lived. For example, when T2's mom, Shanti, would put on one of her saris that happened to be ripped, a sari is a traditional garment in India, T2 would look at what she was wearing, and in toddler speak, he would tell her that she looked terrible and that it looked like she was just wearing rags. T2 would also walk around their house, and he would point to spots in the house.
It ain't just the verbiage, it's the understanding.
The fact that you even because if this is all you know, you know what I'm saying? Then what would make you think anything, other than this is like
or maybe
your
we
norm?
just assuming. We just assuming what we think.
No, I'm
Cause you remember one of the Indian joints he did, it was because they lacked dopamine, and they had to get the dopamine pill so they can.
No,
because they would just pass out.
Yeah, that was different. I really think that this has to do with what we think, like this our past life.
I don't know. I don't know. But it's
your little self. What you know
at
about
a young age to understand that something is like looks or appeals to be lesser value.
Yeah,
that's like advanced as hell.
Like,
that's
where
like,
are you getting this from?
Like, how do you even understand what's value, especially if this is the community you...
Right, this is all you know from the day you were born.
Dirty, and he would demand that somebody cleaned it up because he didn't want to live in a dirty house. And then whenever the family needed to go somewhere and they would walk there or take the bus there, T2 would complain the entire time that he wanted to be in a car. And why aren't we driving in a car? Like, why are we walking? Despite the fact that T2 basically had never used a car before. But perhaps the strangest aspect of T2's behavior was around the time he began talking and insulting his family, he also began talking about this very historic city called Agra, which was located about 8 miles away from where they lived. Agra was famous for being home to the Taj Mahal, which is considered to be one of the most beautiful buildings ever made. Agra also has a very busy downtown and lots of tourism, but T2 had never been to Agra, and there was no reason he would be drawn to Agra, like his family had no connection to that city. But starting around the time T2 began talking at 2 years old, he began asking to go to Agra several times a week, and when his parents would say, no, we're not going to go to Agra, T2 would throw a huge tantrum. And so not long after T2 had begun speaking and saying all these terrible things, Shanti and her husband decided that really all they could do was just wait and hope their son grew out of this terrible behavior. Yeah. But T2 did not grow out of this. Shortly after his parents decided to just kind of wait it out, T2 would randomly attack another small child with a sugar cane, and he beat the kid so badly the kid was bleeding at the end of the attack. And then also another time, shortly after the sugarcane beating, T2 was at the store with his mother, and his mom was looking at this bracelet, which she couldn't afford. She was just looking at it through the glass, and T2 sensed his mom wanted the bracelet, and in an odd show of affection for his mother, he turned to the shopkeeper, this little tiny kid who's not even 3 years old yet, and he tells the shopkeeper that if he doesn't give this bracelet to his mother for free, that T2 will shoot and kill the shopkeeper. And so after this, Shanti and her husband just stopped taking T2 out in public at all. It was just too embarrassing. But what really just unsettled Shanti the most about her son's behavior was that nonsense word that T2 kept saying at the end of all of his tantrums. Shursh Verma, Shursh Verma. And so fast forward to that day after he's broken the plate and now Shanti's put him in his room, T2 began saying that nonsense word, except he was getting a little bit older and his speech was getting a little bit more clear. And so as Shanti was laying up against the door, she realized that her son was not saying a single word, Shursh Verma, he was saying 2 words. They were Suresh Varma. But Shanti had no idea what that meant. She thought it sounded like a name, but it was a name she had never heard before. But one day, a few months after the dish-breaking incident, in April of 1987, all of T2's very strange, erratic, terrible behaviors would erupt all at once. That April day started out like any other. Shanti made breakfast for her family, and then her husband headed out to do some errands, and her 6 children kind of dispersed around the inside and outside of the house to play, study, whatever. But T2 was really grouchy, and so he stayed inside in the kitchen with Shanti. A little while later, Shanti's oldest son came into the kitchen and he asked his mother, hey, when will Dad get back from his trip to Agra? Shanti's husband had gone to Agra to run one of his chores, and Agra was the city that T2 was totally obsessed with. And so when Shanti's oldest son said the word Agra, T2, who was sitting in the kitchen, he heard it and kind of looked up like he was totally fixated on their conversation. And then as Shanti and her oldest were talking about the dad, T2 just got up, left the kitchen, and he went to his room. He grabbed a couple of things, and then he came back into the kitchen carrying this bundle of clothes with him, and he walked right past his brother and his mother. He went out the front door and began running down the road without saying a word. Remember, this is like a 3-year-old child. This is not a teenager. This is a little kid. And so Shanti and her oldest son, they kind of watched in shock as T2 ran off down the road. And for a minute, neither of them did anything. And then it was like they broke out of their trance, and the oldest son just turned and began running out of the house to catch up with T2. Now, it didn't take long for the oldest to catch up with his young brother, but it was surprisingly hard to stop T2 from trying to run away. He fought back as hard as he could to keep his brother from pulling him back to the house. And then when the older brother got T2 back inside, Shanti looked at her older son and she saw he had a black eye from where T2 had just hit him. And when Shanti turned to T2 to try to get him to apologize to his brother for hitting him, she saw T2 was completely inconsolable. He was throwing a huge temper tantrum. He was on the ground kicking and flailing and screaming at the top of his lungs. And so Shanti and her oldest son knew there was no hope in getting him to calm down. He was deep into one of his tantrums. And so Shanti and the oldest just basically restrained T2 so he couldn't hurt himself or one of them or damage anything. And for a while, as they held him to the ground, T2 just continued to scream and flail and throw this fit. But eventually he did kind of calm down and he began saying Suresh Verma over and over again. But then he began talking about something that he really hadn't brought up before that stood out to Shanti and her oldest son. T2, in addition to saying periodically Suresh Verma, also began talking about some radio store in Agra. And T2 kept saying, why didn't Dad bring me to the radio store? Why didn't he bring me? And so as Shanti is listening to her son, she suddenly thinks, you know what? This is my chance. He's being so specific about this radio store. Maybe this is my opportunity to lean in and learn what the heck is going on with my kid. And so once T2 fully stopped his temper tantrum and Shanti and her oldest could finally let go of him, once T2 had left the room, Shanti turned to her oldest son and she told him to go to Agra right now. Just go there and look for a radio store or something. Look for anything that could be a clue to what's going on with T2. He obviously has some fixation with the city. Just go, look around, see if you can find something. So the oldest son left the house and he went to one of his friends' houses who had a car, and together they drove into Agra. Now, Shanti had no idea if her oldest son's trip to Agra would produce anything useful, but she figured, she's got nothing to lose. A few hours later, when Shanti's oldest son returned from Agra, he came into their home with a very serious look on his face. And right away, Shanti could tell, clearly, he's discovered something. And so Shanti asked her oldest son, tell me, what did you learn? What happened in Agra? And the oldest son, he looked down for a second, and then he looked back at his mom and he just said, tomorrow, we're going to have visitors. The next day, a car pulled up in front of Shanti's home and 6 people climbed out. There was a woman wearing a beautiful red sari who appeared to be in her 30s, and then there were 3 other men who also appeared to be in their 30s, and they were all wearing suits and jackets. And there was also an older couple, a man and a woman, and the man was wearing this beautiful sweater, and the woman had on all this silk. It was clear, just from the way they looked, that these 6 people were not from this area. They were from somewhere else, and they had a ton of money. Now, Shanti was inside the house, and she was watching this group arrive, but she did not go outside to greet them. She, her husband, and all of her kids, minus T2, had decided the night before, when they knew these visitors were going to arrive, that they wouldn't go out and talk to them. Instead, they would just allow T2 to basically make first contact with these people and see what happens. So when Shanti saw this group of 6 very well-off people were standing right outside of their gate, kind of waiting to be let in, she called for T2 and said, hey, go outside and open the gate for our guests. And so T2, who was not throwing a fit at this point, he came running through the house and he went to the door. He's not looked outside yet. He opens up the door and he runs outside and he sees these 6 people on the other side of the gate. And suddenly Shanti heard T2 make a sound that he never made. It was like the sound of pure joy. He was so elated to see these 6 people. Shanti couldn't believe it. For a second, Shanti closed her eyes and almost started crying because she knew, even before T2 had made that joyous sound when he saw these people, they were about to solve the mystery of what was going on with her son. Just then, Shanti heard T2 from outside yelling for Shanti and the rest of his family to come outside and meet his other family. Shanti went to the door and gestured for the guests to come inside, and then she led them through the house to the back deck. And then after they were all seated, Shanti looked over at her son, T2, and she saw he had this huge grin on his face. He was so happy, and he was staring intently at the woman who got out of the car, who was in her 30s and wearing the beautiful red sari, and she was sitting right across the table from T2, and T2 is just locked on her. Now, at this point, nobody is speaking. Everybody is just sitting there. No introductions have been made, so nobody even knows each other's names. And in this kind of tense and awkward silence, T2, who again is just staring at this woman in red, he eventually breaks the silence, the 3-year-old child, and he asks the woman in red to come sit next to him. And so the woman...
So who do you think the woman in red is?
His mom?
Or his wife? She's in her 30s.
His wife. She's in her 30s, and then... His wife. It could be a wife.
And then the couple could have been either the
parents of her or
her parents or his parents.
Because I forgot it was an older couple. So yeah.
Or it could be also his sister. Don't know, but she's in her 30s. I doubt it's his mother though. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. Stretch the mom. Forget I said that because I forgot she was. Because
this could be either.
I forgot she was in her 30s. I'm thinking maybe a wife.
Wife or at least
wife
a sister.
or sibling.
Yeah, at least a sister. And then the other guys could be just the brothers, and that could be mom and dad.
And mom and dad or something like that.
Or it could be mother-in-law.
Or
in-laws. In-laws.
Yeah. Dang. Okay.
Red sari, she does what he asks and moves over and sits next to the toddler. And then T2 looked up at her and he smiled and he said, "Do you know who I am?" And the woman, she's looking down at him and she said, "No, I don't." And T2 would look back up at her and he would say, "I know who you are. You're Uma." And at this, the woman in red, whose name really was Uma, she gasped. She had no idea how this kid knew who she was. But before she could even say anything, T2 continued. And he said to her, "Hey, do you remember when we went to the fair with Ranu and Sanu and I bought you those sweets?" And at this, the woman in the red sari, Uma, she had this new look come over her face. Instead of looking like she was just kind of shocked and appalled that this random kid knew who she was, now it was like a look of shocked recognition as she's looking down at T2, like she suddenly understood what was actually going on. And at the same time, T2's mother, Shanti, was watching this happen and she was kind of piecing together what was really going on here, and suddenly she realized she needed to check something. And she got up and she ran out of the room and she came back with scissors. And without saying anything, Shanti went straight to T2, she pushed his head to the side, exposing his right ear, and she used those scissors and began cutting all the hair off his head that was kind of drooped over his right ear, kind of exposing the right side of his skull. And as the hair on T2's head fell to the ground, exposing more and more of the right side of his head, all the adults watching just gasped. And the whole time, T2 was just smiling. To understand what just happened out on that back porch...
I think he died from a hip.
Yeah, it had to.
And birthmark.
And there was a birthmark.
Or
some type of scar. Okay, yeah.
Scar,
some type of scar, birthmark, whatever.
Signifying...
because they would, whoever the 6 people are, would know exactly how whoever the person is
previously
expired. Yeah. So, yeah.
These random people and Shanti and her family, you need some context. So here's what happened when Shanti's oldest son was sent to Agra to go investigate and look for clues that could explain what was going on with T2. The brother and his friend had driven all around Agra, looking for radio stores and looking for things that might in some way kind of connect to T2, and they didn't see anything. But at some point, they drove past one of the many radio stores in Agra, and the name of this radio store immediately stood out to the brother and this friend. So the older brother and the friend, they parked their car and they went into this particular radio shop, and inside of there is where they met Uma, the woman who had the red sari on, who was in her 30s, that T2 said we went to the fair together with, that woman. So she's inside this radio shop. And when the older brother asked Uma how this radio shop got its name, that was when things began to fall into place for this older brother about what was going on with T2. Uma would tell the older brother that this radio shop actually belonged to her husband, except 3.5 years ago, he was murdered. He was shot and killed, and so she had been running the shop ever since. And Uma said she had considered changing the name of the shop, since taking it over, but she just couldn't bring herself to change it because the shop's name was actually based on her husband's name. The name of the shop was Suresh Radio Shop. Her husband's name was Suresh Verma. Wow. The two words that T2 would say all the time at the end of his tantrums. Suresh Verma, Suresh Verma. That was Uma's husband. And it would turn out the details of Suresh's death matched up in a very bizarre way with T2's birth. And all of T2's totally erratic, strange, terrible behavior throughout really his entire life to this point now suddenly made sense if you knew about Suresh's life. Many people, including professors from major universities in India and America, have come to believe that what happened with T2 was when Suresh was murdered, his spirit somehow came out of his body and entered T2's body. Basically, Suresh was reincarnated in T2. This reincarnation theory would explain why T2 was always saying Suresh Verma, because in theory that was his real name. You know, that's the guy who died, who then his spirit transitioned to T2, so he's saying his name over and over again. And then also T2's obsession with Agra would make sense, because that's where Suresh's radio shop was and where he lived. Also, the reincarnation theory would explain why T2 was so critical of Shanti and the rest of his family's lifestyle, basically accusing them of being poor and kind of living below his station. Well, Suresh's family was very, very wealthy, and so that was the lifestyle Suresh had lived. And so if his spirit was now in T2's body, he might be at odds with their lifestyle. And lastly, the reincarnation theory would explain the two very unique and very pronounced birthmarks that T2 had right next to his right ear. He had one right above his right ear and right below it. Now, these were birthmarks that Shanti was well aware of, but after she learned about how Suresh Verma was killed, he was shot in the side of his head, and the bullet went in above his right ear and then came out on the bottom part of his right ear, right here. When she heard that, she ran and got the scissors. She cut the hair away around T2's ear, revealing the two birthmarks. And then the other families saw those birthmarks, and they're like, oh my goodness, that is literally where the entry and exit wounds were on Suresh.
You know how we said that in a previous video before, like, that's how people typically identify, like, being, you get what I'm saying?
You're not saying that.
Like your birthmark, I'm saying it to you because we've seen a video before. People who watching this probably don't know,
like for people
that watched that video before.
Oh.
But wherever your distinctive birthmark, where it's at, it's a possibility of where you transition. How you transition. Mm-hmm. Also, it could be a representation of your fears. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So say for instance, you did pass from a gunshot. Mm-hmm. You might be afraid of loud noise, loud bangs, or you might be afraid of guns. Mm-hmm. Say for instance, you drown. Mm-hmm. You might be afraid to swim prior. You know what I'm saying? Your next life. It's different things because those are fear factors because those affected you. So
if that's what you believe.
But in their culture, reincarnation is very much so pushed that there's a high chance of possibility you will be reincarnated, right?
Yeah, most of the stories we've heard, that's what it seems so.
Oh, Lord.
Hey.
My goodness, that is literally where the entry and exit wounds were on Suresh. And then also, it's worth pointing out that on the day Suresh was shot and killed, well, basically that day was when T2's mother, Shanti, began feeling really sick during her pregnancy with T2, and she had to be hospitalized. After this discovery about T2 and Suresh Verma, Shanti and her husband and the rest of her family expected T2 to want to live with Uma and his other family. And at first, that is what T2 wanted to do, but pretty quickly he actually decided that, you know what, I want to stay put with the family I was born into, and we can just visit with the other family. And so that's what they did. You know, Uma and the other wealthy family, they made visits all the time to see T2 and vice versa. You know, the families got along great. And as for T2, you know, he was really happy. You know, his bad behavior basically went away and he became a normal, high-functioning kid. And T2 has grown up and become a very happy and successful adult. He's got a family of his own, and he's currently a professor at a college in India.
Damn.
That's crazy.
In the very early morning hours,
That That's what's up. Crazy, bro. Crazy ending.
Wow.
Wow. That's crazy. And from the beginning, we said it was reincarnation.
Like, yeah, I was like, yeah, it has to be a past life situation.
Because typically, and then it's a lot of times it's trauma effects too.
Yeah, even with what he said about the behaviors and like, just like
that one where was it a girl? She was basically jumped and killed by her in-laws.
Yeah, that one.
And then she was reincarnated, and they found out about that situation. It's just
what?
No, it's just crazy. Like I'm gonna say this: if I'm trying to get the right way out.
Okay, I'll take the time.
If you could do reincarnation, would you? I'm saying like if it was a choice, if it was a choice, like to be able to like go through reincarnation, would you want to?
No.
Why? So you just was like rather pass and go.
Yeah.
What if your rest of your family was already reincarnated, like the family you know of now?
But that's not a guarantee that I'll be reincarnated with my family.
I'm saying
now.
You might can reconnect with him. He reconnected with his previous family.
No, I love I love my family, but no, I think if it's my time, it's my time. I don't think I want to do life again on this earth.
Well, obviously, it's not even a fucking choice, or is it?
I don't know, because I don't know how that works. I've never thought about that. Like, after, like, you just asked me that and I said no. Then I'll be thinking, you know how I am. I'll be thinking about it all day. And I'll be like, you know something? That won't be a bad idea, because I could do this and that and this again and, do this
especially
over.
with the...
But you just never know what situation you're going to come back into.
Let me say this. What if you end up reincarnated, right? Mm-hmm. And you were able to redo it, but also still have some of the memories.
I don't want the memories.
But not like...
The good memories.
Not even the good, because he also remembers the bad.
Yeah, true.
So he's probably even remember dying the way he died.
See, I don't want that.
So with that, but if you notice the way his life transitioned, actually he probably became even more successful because now he's a professor. He didn't go through still pursuing the same career and open up a business. He went down a whole different path because possibility he remembers some of the things he went through or done, and he was able to be like, man, I don't have to redo that.
You know what?
I can take this. So say for instance me, I know how my childhood was. I know how I didn't try in school. I'm like, bro, I could really...
You want to be reincarnated so you could try and see what you can.
Because if I have that memory, I'm like, bro, let me put the effort because I know what the success I could be able to achieve.
Yeah.
So let me put that effort into it, and I'll be that life will be way better than the previous life. I feel what
you're saying.
It's like you get literally getting a second chance, but with the remembrance, being able to get that second chance to do it better than you did previously before. I think that's the dopeness of it. Mm-hmm. Other than that, there's no dopeness of it. Because especially like you see he came from the previous life, more wealth, more accessibility to things, not from struggle. Yeah. But now you being born into a whole nother life, you like, bro, I don't know these people.
But see,
they're poor. I'm not used to going through that. I'm not used to having to do the hand-me-downs. I don't want to live.
But this is the thing. I feel like you making it, like polishing it up and making it sound good and pretty.
No, I just went through the second part. It's like, and that could be a nightmare for people.
That
could be a nightmare
fantasy. No. Like this, like you making it sound really
I said if you can have that remembrance.
But let's take the if out of it, because obviously even with him,
but
like you don't have, you obviously I guess don't have a choice if you going to whatever, if you believe in reincarnation and stuff like that, you don't really have a choice as to what that second life.
Oh, I ain't talking about that. I'm not talking about. I said the remembrance of your previous life. So from that point, you understand. Hey, like some of the stuff I can go in like.
Well, yeah, because because most of the stories
I know this is a cause and effect.
Listen, because most of the stories that we've heard, they all remember like their previous life,
how they died, who they were, and the wealth that they came from.
Yeah, they remember all of that. Like,
but
that's the only way that you would know. Like, hey, I had another life before this. So yeah, they're going to remember bits and pieces of things and the life they live, loved ones, whatever the case may be. But I mean, if that was something, a thing, you know, that you like believe in or practice, whatever the case may be, then okay, yeah. But just like me, I don't think that I've never thought about that.
What, reincarnation?
Yeah.
It's really the means of reliving in this world. And then my thing is, if you are able to be reincarnated once, how many times are you dealing with reincarnation?
And that's the thing. I don't like.
That's
like,
a continuous cycle. But the thing is, typically what they say with reincarnations, if you are being like, if you do come back, they say typically a lot of people don't remember, but it's a lot of people who do remember. It's like we've done so many stories about people believing they have reincarnated, where the people have solved their previous murder. They have told them how they died, who pulled the trigger, and all this stuff. Facts come true. Sometimes the reincarnation doesn't be right away. Sometimes it'll be years later. We've seen that happen
Or
before.
like the stories where, like, say for instance, a woman, you know, she was pregnant or something and maybe lost the baby, but then she had another child, and then that child remembered the child that she lost. And like, how do you know? Because I never even had that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Saying, like,
and now that
like
was me, and I was a girl.
Like, I remember,
but I actually wanted to be a boy, and I'm glad I was able to come back as a boy.
Stuff like that. But I mean, honestly, like I said before, I never like sat and like really thought about that.
Or the one that happened one time that was like, you were my dad, but previously I was your dad.
Yeah, stuff like that.
And so it's like a continuous cycle. Boom, the boom.
I mean, it sounds cool. Like, it sounds cool. But at the same time, I'm just kind of like, you know, if that's what life is, if that's what, like, you know, if that's what afterlife is, you know, people are being reincarnated, then yeah, cool, whatever. But
that sucks though.
I don't
like, cause it's
how
like,
does it suck when you said you?
No, I'm just saying, like, if I said with the remembrance, but my thing is, if you don't remember and life is a continuous cycle, it's kind of like we're stuck here, and Earth ain't the best place to be stuck at. Like we got to deal with too many motherfuckers in this world and the idiotic brain cells that they have.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Just picture this, right?
Mm-hmm.
If reincarnation is real, I'm gonna just say a name, Hitler. That motherfucker came back. Bin Laden, that motherfucker came back.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, who walking around that used to be Abraham Lincoln? You get what I'm saying? So Martin Luther King, he actually came back. Did he decide not to have a dream no more and said, fuck that fight shit? I see how they did me previous.
You never know.
In my previous life, so I'm gonna go this way because that life, you get what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, I hear you.
Or Malcolm X, he said I don't want to go for the fighting of the, you know what I'm saying? Because honestly, they don't respect you. Look how people, you know what I'm saying?
I feel you.
Just imagine if you knew you was Martin Luther King in your past life, right? And then you came back and you seeing how people talk and disrespect him for all he is. Just imagine if that was you. You went through life fighting battles, all these battles. You become reincarnated. You live in this other life, but you do have the remembrance of who you were prior. And you see how people are. You thought you was doing good for people.
Yeah. And
see how people just dog you and disrespect you. Would you even want to see through that? You'd be like, man,
fuck y'all.
That's what I'm saying.
Fuck all y'all.
Then you get in that mindset and be like, fuck all y'all. I see how it really is.
Yeah, y'all treat a brother.
Yeah.
No, but I put my life on the line for y'all.
Literally put my life on the line. It was taken from me.
Yeah, but just let me rest in peace, please.
But you don't know.
I don't know, but I'm just saying, I'm just not thinking about that. I'm just thinking about what I think.
And then let me ask y'all, some of those people who go through the process of being, I guess, put to sleep in a way. I'm just saying, air quotes, put to sleep. Yeah. And then they see you into this mindset of you tapping back into the lifespans that you had before.
Okay.
Like, you know how they be like, I'm in a sunken place and I'm seeing this person, this image, and I'm walking. That was you in a previous lifetime. I want to do any of y'all believe that is capable of being able to be put to sleep and you being able.
Like with people like in a coma.
Not a coma. I'm saying like you actually going to like I don't know what the people are
Oh,
called.
I'm saying
like a therapist. Or I'm just using the term
you're
therapist.
talking about like
and they put you to sleep and
hypnosis.
Like in a hypnosis state, and then they be like, "Hey, I'm gonna send you back to."
I've actually.
Yeah,
I've actually watched videos like that. I'm not about to say a person. I just said I've actually watched videos like that. Yeah.
But I'm saying I'm asking them, do they believe in that?
Yeah.
Do they believe that's possible? Because half of the people ain't gonna believe reincarnation is possible.
Yeah, a lot of people don't believe.
A lot of people.
So I don't even know if I do. I'm not a non-believer and I'm not a believer because
I know where my birthmark is, and I said, "Hey, mine's if reincarnation is real and your birthmark is tell, I was killed prior."
Why you say it so hard?
Where the location is? Hell yeah, that's right there by the lungs, and it's literally a location for either I was stabbed right there, and that's how I died.
Yeah.
Or I was shot. You know where it's at, so I just kind of told everybody.
Yes, I know where your birthmark at. I see it every day. My goodness, stop. But yeah.
I don't know. We still don't know where yours is.
I know where mine at.
No, you don't.
You don't know where it's at because you don't pay attention to nothing.
No, because we have talked about it. You was like, I don't even know.
I found it. I seen it.
Did your mama tell you that's what it is?
No, I just seen it myself. But anyway, hey, like I said, I'm not a non-believer. I'm not necessarily a believer because I've never.
A skeptic.
Huh?
You're a skeptic?
I'm not. I'm just like, if that's what you believe, I never like be like, oh no. You know how some people like they just like to shoot down other people's beliefs. I'm not that type of person.
Now,
like, a lot of stuff I believe, you're not going to believe. So
now, if it get a little too crazy, then I shoot you down. I'm like, come on now, you like.
But there,
like sometimes, like me, like whether it's like those who believe in aliens. Do I believe like Earth is the only that has the only like planet that has like some type of life form? I don't think that's the truth. But I'll say this: do I believe aliens look like little creatures, looking like ET? I don't think that's the case. I do believe there's a possibility there's other life forms that are able to come here and look like us.
Yeah.
But I'm still skeptical with that. But I'm just saying for those who like have theories and stuff like that, like.
But yeah, hey.
There's always truth in something. There's always some type of truth in something, and whether you believe it or not, that's on you. Yeah. But sometimes there's too much evidence to show that there's not. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? There's not any truth. Like there's too many Indian stories we keep hearing about reincarnation. Yeah. That's really bizarre. And how would these kids that know, because typically they're kids, how would they know?
Like, with situations like this, I'm like, okay, you can try to shoot it down all day, but I need for you to explain to me the how as to them knowing so much, the why of them knowing so much. You know what I'm saying? Because everybody quick to be like, no, that couldn't have happened. That's crazy and stuff like that. Well, explain to me. You know
how that happened.
How it happened then. How they know so much. Facts. And then we could talk.
But hey man, y'all spam us up in the comments. Let us know y'all thoughts about it in the comment section down below for us. But as always, man, y'all know how it go. I do go by the name DJ New Kid. This is. We are.
Had to go and get it. Ain't no time to kick it. Got a stack of flip for my foes. Dollar. Please tell me you can hear me. Don't turn your back and don't neglect me. Just let me know if you need me. Dollar. Let me watch out for my partner.